Jaden Hartwell, a 45-year-old charismatic investment banker, and his wife, Karen, a 42-year-old respected art gallery curator, were seen as the epitome of success and elegance within their affluent community. Their life appeared idyllic. A luxurious 5-bedroom home with manicured lawns, high-end vehicles, and a reputation for throwing lavish parties. They were deeply involved in their social circles, active members of the local country club, and generous donors to various charities. Their 2 children, Penelope and Atticus, thrived in private school and extracurricular activities. To outsiders, the Hartwells embodied the American dream, a loving, successful couple who had it all. However, this glamorous and seemingly perfect exterior masked a growing turmoil beneath the surface. Behind the smiles and public appearances, the Hartwells' marriage was slowly eroding, setting the stage for a scandalous and heartbreaking unraveling that would later shock their community. What began as an admired partnership would soon become a cautionary tale of betrayal, illness, and revenge. Cracks beneath the surface, Karen's growing frustration, and Jaden's emotional withdrawal, while the public image of the Hartwells was one of marital bliss. Behind closed doors, a much different story was unfolding. Over the years, Karen Hartwell began to feel increasingly isolated and unfulfilled in her marriage. Jaden, once affectionate and attentive, had become emotionally distant. His demanding career in investment banking consumed his time and energy, often leaving Karen to manage the household and family life alone. Karen, a passionate art curator with a refined eye for beauty and emotion, felt emotionally starved. Her attempts to rekindle intimacy, planning getaways, initiating conversations about their future, or even suggesting therapy, were met with indifference or brushed aside by Jaden. He would often retreat into work or spend nights out networking, always justifying his absence as necessary for their high-end lifestyle. This emotional neglect began to breed resentment in Karen. She longed for connection, validation, and a sense of being truly seen, something she once had with Jaden but hadn't felt in years. At the same time, she struggled with the internal conflict of maintaining their picture-perfect image while quietly enduring loneliness and dissatisfaction. As Karen's frustration deepened, so did the emotional chasm between her and Jaden. Their conversations grew colder, their physical intimacy all but disappeared, and the home that once echoed with laughter now felt more like a beautifully decorated cage. Karen began to feel like a ghost in her own life, present but invisible, which set the stage for choices that would soon send shock waves through their world. The dangerous escape, Karen's secret affair with Liam, the neighbor's son. In the midst of her emotional unraveling, Karen Hartwell found herself increasingly drawn to someone who was not only off-limits, but shockingly close to home. Liam, the 23-year-old son of her neighbors, the Carters. What began as casual conversations over backyard fences and friendly smiles during neighborhood barbecues soon evolved into something far more dangerous. Liam was everything Jaden was not: attentive, youthful, expressive, and emotionally available. Despite being more than a decade younger than Karen, he saw her, truly saw her. Their flirtation started subtly, lingering eye contact, compliments, inside jokes. Karen, starved for affection and validation, found herself exhilarated by the attention. It wasn't long before flirtation gave way to physical attraction. Their affair ignited in secrecy, with stolen moments in Karen's home when Jaden was at work, late-night rendezvous in Liam's car, and long text threads filled with passion, vulnerability, and dreams of escape. Liam, enamored by the sophistication and maturity of Karen, believed their connection was genuine love, not just a temporary indulgence. Karen, on the other hand, was conflicted. She knew the risks, the age gap, the proximity to both families, the betrayal of trust. Yet the emotional high of the affair made her feel alive in ways she hadn't in years. Liam became her confidant, her outlet, and, eventually, her obsession. This forbidden relationship created a volatile undercurrent that threatened to implode the carefully controlled image of her life. As their affair deepened, so did the danger, because secrets that burn this hot rarely stay hidden for long. And when emotional need and reckless passion collide, consequences can be devastating. Jealousy and possessiveness. Liam's growing obsession turns dangerous. As Karen and Liam's affair intensified, so did Liam's emotional instability. What had started as an exhilarating secret romance quickly transformed into a toxic entanglement fueled by jealousy, possessiveness, and increasingly irrational behavior. Liam, once a charming and carefree neighbor, began showing darker traits that alarmed even Karen. Liam had become obsessed. He started to treat Karen not as an equal partner, but as something he owned. He constantly demanded her attention, texting and calling her relentlessly, especially when she didn't respond immediately. If she so much as spoke to another man, whether it was a delivery driver, a coworker, or even her husband Jaden, Liam would spiral into fits of anger. He accused her of being unfaithful to him, ironically ignoring the fact that their entire relationship was based on deception. Karen tried to set boundaries, but Liam refused to respect them. He would show up uninvited at her home, lurking in the shadows, watching the house from across the street to make sure Jaden wasn't around. On several occasions, neighbors reported seeing him park for hours in his car, staring at the Hartwell residence, behavior that began to raise suspicion. His manipulation tactics escalated. He threatened self-harm if Karen ever tried to leave him. He claimed no one would understand their love the way he did. He started keeping tabs on her daily movements, even following her without her knowledge. Karen, overwhelmed and afraid, realized the affair had evolved into something much more sinister than a simple romantic escape. She was now caught in the grip of a man who believed that if he couldn't have her, no one could. Karen tried to pull back, even suggesting they take a break, but Liam refused to let go. His possessiveness became suffocating. He began making veiled threats toward Jaden, hinting that he could make problems disappear. Karen felt trapped, emotionally blackmailed by a man she once saw as her salvation. By this point, the line between love and obsession had long been crossed. Liam was no longer just a lover. He had become a ticking time bomb. Karen's attempt to end the affair, or even just slow it down, only poured fuel on his emotional fire. And as his behavior grew more erratic and controlling, one thing became increasingly clear. Liam wasn't going to let her go without a fight, and the consequences of his obsession would soon turn deadly. A deadly plan forms. Liam's jealousy transforms into a murderous obsession. As Liam's obsession with Karen deepened, his mental state deteriorated further. What began as passionate infatuation had now morphed into something far more dangerous, a delusion. He had convinced himself that he and Karen were meant to be together, no matter the cost. And the one obstacle standing in their way? Karen's husband, Jaden Hartwell. Liam became consumed with the idea of removing Jaden from the picture entirely. In his twisted mind, Jaden wasn't just Karen's husband. He was the enemy, the reason they couldn't be together freely. The same man who had once lent Liam tools and waved politely across the lawn had become the target of a sinister plot. Liam began to devise a plan to kill Jaden. It wasn't just an impulsive thought. It was calculated. He spent weeks observing Jaden's routines. What time he left for work, when he jogged in the mornings, when he returned home. He scouted for vulnerabilities and opportunities. At one point, he even attempted to gain access to the Hartwell home while Jaden was away, under the guise of helping Karen with a home repair, a sign of how deeply he had infiltrated their lives. But it wasn't just planning. Liam started testing Karen's loyalty and involvement. He would ask hypothetical questions. Would you still love me if something happened to Jaden? Or have you ever imagined what life would be like without him? At first, Karen brushed these off as emotional outbursts, but she soon realized that Liam's thoughts weren't just fantasy. They were moving toward action. Liam's online searches became darker. Phrases like, how to kill someone without getting caught, disguised poisons, and how long it takes for a body to decompose were found later by investigators. He even visited a dark web forum, reportedly inquiring about untraceable weapons. The transformation from jealous lover to potential killer was now in motion. Karen, now deeply frightened by Liam's behavior, tried to distance herself. But by then it was too late. Liam had gone too far. He believed she had led him on, made him dream of a future together. And now she was retreating. That rejection only stoked his rage. In his mind, Karen was just as guilty as Jaden for ruining everything. This wasn't about love anymore. This was about control, power, and revenge. Liam's growing desperation and distorted sense of reality had led him to believe that the only path forward was through violence. A dark plan was forming, and the clock was ticking. Murder in the night. Jaden is ambushed and killed. The horrific climax of Liam's obsession unfolded on a quiet, seemingly ordinary evening. But for Jaden Hartwell, it would be his last. After weeks of fantasizing, planning, and seething in rage, Liam executed his deadly plan with chilling precision. On the night of the murder, Jaden had just returned home from a late shift at the architectural firm where he worked. It was around 10:15 p.m. The neighborhood was still, cloaked in silence, and most residents were already in for the night. Unbeknownst to Jaden, Liam was hiding nearby, watching from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Liam knew Jaden's routine. He knew that when Jaden pulled into the driveway, he usually checked the mailbox before heading inside. As Jaden approached the front door, Liam emerged from the side of the house wearing dark clothing and gloves. Armed with a blunt object, believed to be a heavy metal pipe or crowbar, Liam struck Jaden from behind. The first blow was powerful, cracking Jaden's skull and sending him crashing to the ground. But Liam didn't stop. He continued striking until Jaden lay motionless in a pool of blood on his own front porch. The brutality of the attack shocked even seasoned investigators later on. It was a crime of pure rage, far beyond what was necessary to kill. After ensuring that Jaden was dead, Liam dragged the body behind a row of hedges, attempting to conceal it temporarily. Blood spatter on the front steps, doorframe, and even the mailbox would later contradict any attempt at hiding the evidence. Investigators later said it appeared the killer had no real escape plan, indicating a crime driven more by emotional impulse than rational foresight. As for Karen, she claimed she was asleep at the time of the murder, unaware that her lover had just bludgeoned her husband to death outside their home. But phone records and later interviews would raise serious doubts about her true level of involvement, particularly after it was discovered that she had exchanged over 30 text messages with Liam that day, including one that ominously read, "I wish things were different. I hate seeing you suffer because of him." Liam fled the scene shortly after, leaving Jaden's lifeless body outside until it was discovered the next morning by a neighbor walking their dog. The 911 call was filled with panic, reporting what looked like a man beaten to death in front of the Hartwell residence. When police arrived, the crime scene told a clear story. This was a robbery. Nothing had been stolen, and there were no signs of forced entry. It was a personal attack, one carried out with raw violence and fury. Jaden had no chance to defend himself. In the days following the murder, suspicion quickly turned toward Liam, especially as investigators uncovered his obsessive messages, disturbing internet searches, and a clear motive. But what they didn't yet know was whether Karen had helped plan the murder, or she was just a pawn in Liam's deadly fantasy. That question would haunt the case and become a central focus of the investigation that followed. The investigation, Liam and Karen's web of lies unravel. Following Jaden Hartwell's brutal murder, the investigation quickly escalated into a full-scale operation. From the outset, detectives were convinced this was a targeted killing, not a random act of violence. The scene offered critical clues. The victim hadn't been robbed, there was no forced entry, and the level of overkill suggested deep, personal rage. It was clear someone close to Jaden wanted him dead. Initial suspicions and Karen's behavior. Karen Hartwell's reaction raised eyebrows. Although she claimed she had been asleep during the murder, her demeanor was described as oddly calm and disconnected, especially considering her husband had just been bludgeoned to death on their front porch. She appeared more concerned with controlling the narrative than grieving. Detectives noted her evasive answers and reluctance to provide her phone voluntarily. When investigators did obtain her phone and digital records through a warrant, a disturbing pattern emerged. Karen had been texting Liam Carter, her much younger lover, obsessively in the days leading up to the murder. On the day of Jaden's death alone, they exchanged over 30 messages, many of which were emotionally charged, hinting at dissatisfaction with Jaden and cryptic references to finally being free. One message from Liam, sent hours before the murder, read, "I'll do whatever it takes. Just say the word." And Karen's reply, "You know how I feel. I can't keep living like this." This communication immediately placed Liam Carter on the radar. Liam becomes the prime suspect. Liam Carter was questioned within 48 hours of the murder. At first, he played dumb, claiming he hadn't spoken to Karen in weeks and was home the entire night watching movies. But when confronted with the phone records and surveillance footage showing his car near the Hartwells' neighborhood the night of the murder, his story fell apart. Investigators obtained a search warrant for Liam's apartment. Inside, they found clothing matching the suspect's description from a neighbor's security camera, a journal filled with disturbing entries, including one that read, "He doesn't deserve her. If he's gone, we can be together. She'll thank me one day." A bloody glove hidden in the closet, which forensic testing later confirmed contained both Liam's DNA and Jaden's blood. In a matter of days, the evidence against Liam became overwhelming. He was arrested for the murder of Jaden Hartwell. But the question remained, did Karen conspire with him to commit the crime? Karen's involvement, co-conspirator or manipulated lover? The investigation turned its focus toward Karen's role. Prosecutors needed to determine whether she had simply been a woman trapped in a toxic marriage who fell for the wrong man, or whether she had encouraged and possibly helped plan her husband's murder. Digging deeper, detectives uncovered the extent of Karen's manipulation. She had not only started the affair with Liam, but had also fed him stories about Jaden being abusive, which friends and family later refuted. She painted herself as a victim, playing on Liam's emotions and hero complex. In one message, she told Liam, "You're the only one who sees me. He makes me feel like nothing." Despite this, Karen continued to deny any knowledge of the murder plot. However, the mountain of digital evidence painted a different picture. While there was no direct message saying, "Kill him," the implication was clear. She had created the emotional justification and fueled the fire that drove Liam to act. The prosecution began preparing to charge Karen with conspiracy to commit murder, believing she had acted as the instigator, manipulating a vulnerable young man into doing her dirty work. What unfolded in the months to follow was a courtroom drama where text messages became weapons, emotional manipulation was scrutinized, and the line between victim and villain became increasingly blurred. Following weeks of mounting pressure, overwhelming evidence, and intense media scrutiny, both Liam Carter and Karen Hartwell were arrested in connection with the murder of Jaden Hartwell. Their arrests marked the climax of a twisted affair that spiraled from forbidden lust into calculated murder. Liam Carter's arrest. Liam was the first to be taken into custody. Authorities had already gathered significant evidence implicating him directly in the murder. Surveillance footage placing him near the Hartwell home the night of the crime. Text messages expressing his willingness to do whatever it takes. A blood-stained glove found in his apartment, containing both his and Jaden's DNA. Journal entries detailing his obsessive love for Karen and fantasies of a life without Jaden. The case against Liam was airtight. He was arrested without incident, booked on charges of first-degree murder, and held without bail. During questioning, Liam initially maintained his innocence, but when presented with the evidence, he broke down emotionally. His confession was partial. He admitted to being present the night of the murder and claimed things got out of control, but he stopped short of accepting full responsibility. Instead, he repeatedly mentioned how Karen had told him stories about Jaden's alleged abuse and that she needed to be saved. His confession painted him as a man manipulated by a woman he adored, yet unable to resist acting on her perceived pain. Karen Hartwell's arrest. Karen's arrest was more dramatic. After Liam's confession and the discovery of numerous incriminating messages, police secured a warrant when they arrived at her home. Karen was hosting a brunch with neighbors, attempting to keep up appearances. The moment her handcuffs clicked, the facade shattered. She was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, accessory before the fact, obstruction of justice for misleading police and deleting incriminating messages. Karen's defense was immediate and fierce. She denied any involvement in the planning of her husband's murder, claiming she never intended for Liam to kill Jaden. Her attorneys argued that she was a grieving widow being vilified for the actions of a deluded young man, insisting the texts were taken out of context and that Liam acted alone, driven by jealousy and obsession. However, prosecutors had a different narrative, that Karen carefully planted emotional triggers, manipulated Liam into believing Jaden was a threat, and emotionally groomed him to commit murder, all while keeping her own hands clean. The fallout The arrest of both Karen and Liam sent shockwaves through their community. Neighbors who once saw Karen as a loving wife and mother were now questioning how well they truly knew her. Friends of Liam were devastated to learn how deeply he had become entangled in the web Karen spun. In the weeks following the arrests, Karen was denied bail, with the judge citing her as a potential flight risk. Liam was placed on suicide watch after reportedly trying to harm himself in jail. The Hartwell family, especially Jaden's sister and parents, began advocating for maximum penalties against both suspects. The upcoming trial was shaping up to be a battle of perception. Was Karen a cold, calculating manipulator who used her lover to eliminate her husband? Or was she simply a woman trapped in a toxic marriage, who got caught in the crossfire of Liam's unstable obsession? As the public watched closely, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a murder case. It was a psychological war of narratives where truth, love, and lies collide in the most tragic of ways. The trial, a courtroom battle of love, lies, and murder. The trial of Karen Hartwell and Liam Carter captivated the nation, unfolding as a dramatic courtroom saga that delved deep into themes of forbidden love, manipulation, and cold-blooded murder. Both stood accused in the brutal killing of Karen's husband, Jaden Hartwell, with the prosecution alleging a calculated conspiracy driven by passion and deceit. Prosecution's case, a calculated conspiracy. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture of a premeditated murder, asserting that Karen and Liam conspired to eliminate Jaden to clear the path for their illicit relationship. Central to their case were digital evidence. A trove of text messages between Karen and Liam revealed a deepening emotional entanglement and discussions that prosecutors argued hinted at plotting Jaden's demise. Liam's confession. While Liam admitted to killing, he claimed it was an act of passion, spurred by Karen's portrayal of Jaden as abusive. Karen's manipulation. The prosecution argued that Karen manipulated Liam, leveraging his affections to orchestrate the murder without directly implicating herself. Defense's argument, a tale of obsession and misinterpretation. Karen's defense team contended that she was a victim of Liam's obsessive delusions. They argued lack of direct evidence. There was no concrete proof tying Karen to the planning or execution of the murder. Liam's instability. The defense highlighted Liam's mental health issues, suggesting he acted independently, driven by his own fantasies. Misinterpreted communications. They claimed the text messages were taken out of context, reflecting emotional turmoil rather than a murder plot. Verdict and sentencing. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Liam Carter. Found guilty of first-degree murder, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Karen Hartwell. Convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and accessory before the fact, she received a 25-year prison sentence. Aftermath. A community in shock. The trial's conclusion left the community grappling with the revelations of betrayal and violence. Jaden's family expressed relief at the verdicts, but mourned the loss deeply. The case served as a stark reminder of how passion, when twisted by manipulation and obsession, can lead to devastating consequences.